But what we see is that the language barrier between machines and the humans have been broken.
Now, that's not just a device story, it's also a content and a language and a benefit story. We already see also the nature of connectivity changing, so we start to see a blend of Wi-Fi and cellular and satellite perhaps working together.
One of the things that I am predicting is that one of the things that have not changed from any of the devices, we talked about PCs.
You can't have perhaps an Apple smartphone that speaks every language, but you can have an AI engine that might be able to access these different language models.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Tech Tuesday podcast number 2. If you have watched the previous one where Dr. Mike Short and me, we were talking about various stuff, right? About our careers. We zoomed into some of the things that, we both are passionate about and we have seen as a journey, right? Mike, what are you busy with these days? What are you doing?
Well, after 30 years in mobile communications and then 5 years as government chief scientist, I thought that's been the official career. I felt it was time to take on more of a portfolio approach where I could mix different innovative areas and help the industry grow a bit more based on the experience. So that includes, I chair the UK Telecoms Labs, which tests telecoms networks, particularly mobile, for network resilience and vendor diversity. And we have a well-established lab here in the UK where I chair the advisory board. I also chair the UK Telecoms Innovation Network, which has got around 5,500 members. Lots of innovative companies working in different ways, particularly to help with the development of 5G, to help with collaboration across SME and small medium enterprise companies with large companies. And lastly, I also chair a company called AWTG that specialises in private network services, so offering solutions to mobile operators and to major landlords, which can offer a dedicated coverage to their requirements. And I think as we look forward, I think all three of those roles can help a lot of the innovation roll forward. I mean, the world of mobile that we've both grown up in represents and nearly covers 8 billion customers today, 5.5 billion unique customers, but around 8 billion customers. So we've grown up in the biggest tech industry in the world, mobile and internet together, but measured by subscribers is one way of doing it. The other thing, though, we can still see is a lot more room for growth. And I think we should talk about where innovation and growth go hand in hand, perhaps to 2030 or thereabouts.
Absolutely. So, Mike, where do you see? We talked about the mobile phone in the last episode. If the audience has tuned into, we talked a lot about the past, right? Where we came from, where the industry came from, the impact, and we talked about the mobile phone inclusivity. So, where do you see? We talked about smartphones, right? Where do you see the smartphones are moving into?
I think if we start with devices such as smartphones,
let's say.
I think the range of devices are going to multiply. I don't think it's a question of a smartphone in the pocket. I think we're going to see more things being connected. And that could be things for the car, or things for the home, or things for the office. We already see also the nature of connectivity changing, so we start to see a blend of Wi-Fi and cellular and satellite perhaps working together with devices. But it also has lots of needs where AI could save money or make money.
Yeah.
In terms of the saving the money, it's not just AI in the network.
AI models are, they're thinking, when can we have it, right? So they need to be exposed, of course, in a privacy sensitive way.
Temperature and air conditioning, perhaps remote controls for your house, to enter your house, other remote controls that allow you to switch on or off heating or air conditioning. The other devices I expect we're going to see are linked to the car.
Mm.
Already as we move from current cars as we know them, we are seeing the electrification of cars. So it's a natural thing to think about the connectivity to the car, but also to the electric vehicle charging station.
Yeah.
Also to your ability to pay automatically into car parks or toll roads, so affecting devices for payment systems. We already see the move with e-commerce, where identity management is changing. So the devices need to reflect that to make sure they're offering the level of security to do e-commerce and financial transactions. So the devices I'm expecting to change. Some of the price points may also change, because if we're to think about inclusivity, I still worry that if two-thirds of the world has access to the internet, what do we need to do to get the other third to access the internet? Now, that's not just a device story, it's also a content and a language and a benefit story. But the price of the device certainly affects inclusivity. And I would expect to see more devices at lower price, as well as more devices at higher price that help the inclusivity of access and new services that can emerge.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree, Mike. I want to add in there probably a bit more futuristic. We still didn't, we still didn't talk about AI stuff. We'll talk about that in some time, I'm sure. But what we see is that, you know, the language barrier between, let's say, the machines and the humans have been broken through this chat GPT phenomenon. It happened before that, but that actually put it into, let's say, popular, I would say, discussions, right? One of the things that I am predicting is that one of the things that have not changed from any of the devices, we talked about PCs, and before that, I started with AS400 mainframe computers as well. And from now, when we use these, let's say, smartphones, right? One of the things that has not changed is dependence on a screen and a keyboard, right? And nothing actually challenged it, right? Yes, the screen became more and more advanced and more, I would say, clearer. The keyboard from a physical keyboard, it became a virtual keyboard as part of the screen. But still, there was a keyboard, there was a screen, and nothing challenged it, right? It doesn't matter if you were interacting in the internet, as you said, one of the most kind of innovative things that we did, or in this mobile, right? I feel that entire, let's say, dependence on a screen and keyboard is challenged right now with this AI revolution, Gen AI revolution, where I don't need a screen, I don't need a keyboard because I can talk to it, right? These devices will be there, but I can talk to the device without depending on a screen. And then, is that good, bad? Maybe there is an inclusivity part as well in there, right? Because you mentioned language as well. When we say inclusivity, I think currently, because our life, this dual life, organic and inorganic, or organic and digital life, is quite intersected, isn't it? And digital inclusion is critical because otherwise we leave, I don't know what percentage of the global population. And for the digital inclusion, I think language is critical as well, especially countries like India, where 784, right? So and this is where you say that there will be multiple devices in there, not just mobile devices. And I hope they all work together there, right? Because it's an ecosystem and collaboration thing as well, and the connectivity.
May I just add, I don't think the mobile industry or the internet industry have done enough about languages at all. And from an inclusivity angle, clearly not everybody speaks English, not everybody speaks Hindi. There are many more languages than the core top 10 languages. But also, when it comes to disability, Not everybody has the same ability to speak or listen. So thinking about conversion of modes, how do you get text to speech or speech to text? If people are blind, they can't see the text, so they need that translation capability. So I think we'll see more modes of translation, not just language translation, translation of modes as well. I also think some of the large language models may not be as large as people suggest to do everything. We may well have some small language models, some which are geared towards smaller languages, smaller by volume, but are respectful of languages and culture that may go hand in hand. Already the GSM Association that represents mobile operators worldwide have done some work on Catalan in southern Spain. The Catalonian language is not spoken by everybody in Spain, but it's important for them. They've done some work in Kazakhstan to look at the Kazakhstan language. Again, Catalan and Kazakhstan are not typical languages that the top IT or telecoms companies always think about. In Wales, within the UK, the Welsh language is still spoken by a sizable number that are not well catered for by the IT and telecoms community. So whether it's multimodal translation or language and culture translation, a lot more work needs to be done. And I think the devices need to follow that trend. You can't have perhaps an Apple smartphone that speaks every language, but you can have an AI engine that might be able to access these different language models and use them appropriately in some countries.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably is a more of a connected story than just a device story, right? So devices are the entry point to the service towards this digital world. So there is more of collaboration of wherever these language model. We already started to talk about AI. These language models. It doesn't have to sit on the device, right? They can sit in the cloud, but they needs to be accessible in there. And also, maybe at some point, we don't need to probably talk about translation because translation is a means to the service, right? Why do we need to translate? So if I need to access a particular digit, let's say mobile money, right? I don't need to assume that mobile money is only accessible in English and I speak a specific dialect in some remote village in India, in Karnataka, right? So I need to first translate that dialect into English and then I use the mobile money service. Ideally, it should be seamless. I speak in my dialect and then that service, whatever that service is, somehow understands it and serves me, right? Hopefully that type of convergence is happening. But I was thinking, Mike, another thing which is something that you have worked on extensively as well. It's connectivity, right? I think you are very lucky to work on various types of connectivity, right? Mobile connectivity and satellite connectivity as well, right? But as we all know, for connectivity, there is this natural resource called spectrum. That's generally is a barrier. You cannot just create spectrum from thin air, right? So how do you feel, there will always be a shortage of spectrum, right? Whatever you do. Hopefully, we will have some innovation that can actually manage that. So how do you see that, if we can call it a problem? What's the way around to solve it? And also, how do you see the future around that?
So I used to be on the UK regulator Ofcom's Spectrum Advisory Board. So I've done 30 plus years with Spectrum. Frankly, if we look at our sector, the mobile sector, we've been a Cinderella compared to some other major users of Spectrum, such as the broadcast industry or the defence industry. They've had more generous spectrum allocations. Over time, the spectrum has increased and been made more widely available for mobile services, but I could still say that we are lagging compared to some holders of spectrum. The importance of spectrum is not just about abundance, it's also about the right frequency to maximize the economies of scale globally. So we need to think about spectrum that is low enough to be usable, not up in the high bands, but also compatible for many countries to achieve low-cost devices which can be standardized to that spectrum band. That said, there are still spectrum shortages affecting the growth of the mobile industry. So when we look at Wi-Fi, cellular, and satellite together, we can start to see spectrum being shared across the boundaries. So a smartphone can access Wi-Fi and cellular today, and increasingly will be able to access satellite. Now, if more spectrum becomes available, that opens up opportunities for more spectrum. But there are other ways of thinking about using spectrum to offer more coverage. So, for example, we're seeing in Europe, and I think we'll see more of this in India and Asia as well, more and more private networks being built where there is a particular location problem where a landlord says, you're not serving my site, my stadia, my port, my science park well enough. I need you operators to work together. And that brings in companies like the one I chair, AWTG, to offer private network solutions, sometimes with dedicated spectrum, sometimes with cellular or Wi-Fi spectrum, to do tailored solutions to a given site. So imagine a big cricket stadium in India, and they want to see the replay streamed to their handset. The big cricket stadia will not be able to manage with one network on their own because a huge crowd, all streaming at once or all sending photos of their favourite players at once, they will not all be able to send and receive at the same time. So a private network solution would fit a major cricket stadium or a major entertainment venue or a major port where there are high volume, high capacity requirements. And we're seeing lots of examples of private networks. Now, some of them can be neutral hosts, so they can have shared spectrum from each operator and could be managed by a neutral host operator. One example of that is we have a company called Boldin Networks here in London, covering the whole of the London Underground. But in terms of what they're doing, it's a network the equivalent of Belgium. You know, London is a big city, so it is a huge neutral host network or private network where the spectrum is shared. If we also think about it from a remote rural or a maritime point of view, satellite can bring in a huge capability.
Absolutely.
And bring in their own spectrum with it, and therefore getting mobile access to a satellite set of frequencies for remote and rural or over-the-sea type coverage. And this is important for safety. This is important for resilience. This is important in disaster recovery. You know, we have to think about this across technology boundaries so that we can offer safety that citizens expect wherever they are, not just in cities or in well-provided for villages. We need to think about coverage from a spectrum point of view to serve citizens wherever they are. And they're not fixed. They're on the move.
Yeah.
They could be travelling. They could be hitchhiking. We need to be able to help emergency services and rescue. And that's why looking at these technologies together, when the devices enable it and the spectrum enables it, it is very sensible.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, that's another element of convergence that needs to happen and working together, right? So across these different, let's say, spectrum elements, from cellular to Wi-Fi to satellite as well, maybe in the future some other. And I believe AI will play a role here as well, because for more from efficiency, of course, it will not solve the shortage of spectrum, but it can help to use spectrums more efficiently, which we have already seen in 5G. You know, the basically 5G base stations they're utilizing, and 6G probably it will happen even more, right? Where more efficient use of spectrum that can happen by learning in the base stations at the edge, and then, you know, using it, maybe switching between different bandwidths, and also deciding that right now the handover happens not across different verticals, right? So hopefully in the future there could be a seamless handover that can happen between different vertical spectrums as well.
May I just say, from an AI point of view, I think India has got some significant advantages in terms of AI development. But I'd like to describe the telecoms market for AI and how I think it would affect telecoms networks and
Yeah.
services. So traditionally, the telecoms market has been strong in the use of machine learning. It is therefore a well-placed sector to adopt AI where it makes sense to do so. It has strong data processing capability, data collection capability, and storage capability. It could also be AI in the billing system, or AI in the customer care system, or AI in the provisioning and services side. Some of this is not just, as I say, about saving money, it's about making money, but also offering new services. So in customer care, we already see AI in use today to help a customer find its way through to a new service, where there may be some AI prompts to say, have you thought about this? It could be voice-based AI helping to offer better customer care. It might also be, though, offering new pricing plans, new coverage plans, new service plans. You don't always need to speak to an operator's representative. It could be a more automated service. So adding a voice-based set of prompts, or a summary of your past payments, or a summary of a previous conversation, AI can help in lots of these areas. And I don't just mean cold robots. I mean people who are more intuitive to a range of requirements. I particularly like the idea that AI can use different languages. I particularly like the idea that more service options and personalization can come with AI. Your ability to have more tailored coverage or pricing plans, for example. But I particularly like also the ability to start to use the data in the telecoms networks to innovate with new services. And I think that goes beyond the traditional network area into data from the telco community into partnering and innovation where new developments could occur. So if we start to think about how telecoms with AI could help healthcare, or telecoms could help transport and the management of transport planning, or perhaps help factories in a business-to-business sense, we can start to see how AI helps these customers way beyond traditional telecoms networks.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where I'm spending a lot of time right now because, AI has taken a journey, isn't it? Right now, almost the entire, let's say, readable internet or accessible internet in a multimodal way have been consumed. These AI models they're quick learners, right? They have read, seen every video, every image. But there is still a lot of data available within the telco world in general, not just in mobile telco worlds, right? So I'm sure these one of the things that I want to mention here is there is an evolution that the telco world needs to happen as well, right? Because what is happening right now, so we started to talk about AI. So the way I see that is AI has taken a journey. First time I used AI was in 1999, right? And then, of course, that was not Gen AI, didn't exist. It was predictive AI, right? Where you were predicting stuff, predicting whether it's a house price or predicting, you know, some sort of scores, etc. What I was doing in 1999 was to try to extract out useful information from legal document which was handwritten. Tough. It didn't work. I failed miserably. Anyways, then I tried in multiple turns as well. But now it's exciting. So that was predictive AI, where it was predicting those house prices, etc. Although that's not what I was trying. Or it was predicting from an image: is it a cow, or is it a cat, or is it a dog? Then it transformed, right? It became Gen AI, where it's not predicting whether it is a cat or a dog. You are telling, hey, can you draw a cat or a dog? It started to create cat and a dog. But now we have these agentic AI as well, right? Which is scary and exciting at the same time. Coming back to telecoms, the telecom networks, as you know, Mike, because you spend so much time in there, maybe you can talk about if the satellites could do that as well or not. I mean, coming from the telecom world, they are designed, the networks are designed based on the consumption, and the consumption is more download, right? I am consuming this thing. This AI world, agentic world, is not download. It's burst of information where the agents will send things there, right? Right now, I don't think that at least the mobile telecom, the cellular networks are designed for that. So if we believe that the future of the internet is internet of agents or agentic stuff that will happen, the networks need to evolve. Otherwise, there will be so much of stress in the mobile internet, mobile network. It will be hard, and then there will be frustrations, as we know. So what do you feel about that? And maybe you can touch upon, is satellite a better choice for this agentic internet?
Well, first of all, I think we should just say that telecoms are designed to help people communicate, whether it's voice or data. So they need to hear, receive, and send.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just an uplink and a downlink question. I think we need to maintain the resilience of connectivity. But when we are uploading more, we need to think about having the right spectrum, the right architectures, the right ability to do uplink as well as downlink. And if that changes, yes, we need to do more work in that area. And I think you're referring a little bit to the evolution of 5G towards 6G in that area. But let me just take the satellite side first. Satellite communications is particularly strong for remote coverage areas and over the sea. However, it's also strong in areas like Earth observation. And we are already seeing a lot of AI use in Earth observation. Why? Because the amount of data being seen over our planet by the satellites today is growing exponentially. In days gone by, there used to be around 2,000 satellites over the Earth. It's close to 20,000 today, and some would say by 2030 it may be as high as 50,000. So the number of satellites are growing in volume, but also the accuracy of what they can see is changing. The satellites today can see down to a square kilometre of the Earth and routinely refresh that more than once a day. The rotation and number of satellites is changing to see so much more. So that gathers huge amounts of data, and you need AI to process that data. Now that could be for weather predictions. AI can help. That could be for the environment. How do you predict that some areas of environmental change are taking place, climate change? But also, how can you identify if there's pollution over certain parts of the planet? And if so, spot the pollution before it spreads too far. How can you look at the land below to see that the agriculture is working well? Fertile land or not fertile land? Crop rotation? Different types of animal husbandry. Yes, you can see cows and elephants by satellite. You can't quite see the insects yet. But if you can spot cows and elephants, you can spot the herds disappearing over agricultural boundaries and maybe helping with safety. So you can do a lot with Earth observation, but AI really helps detect the needles, or needles in the haystack, so to speak, to give you prevention and productivity benefits that people don't always see. The other thing we can see with satellite is that the positioning and navigation story around satellite is changing. So our reliance on GPS, global positioning systems, may change. We may use satellite navigation in the car today, but we might start to use other data sources where AI can help. Other data sources to help navigate our journey, to find the nearest hotel, to find the nearest charging point. So some of the data collection from the satellite community can offer a lot of lessons to the mobile community, but also for many users, particularly in transport. Satellites are not so good over cities. Clearly we get shadows behind tall buildings, so the ability to use satellite comms in cities is not the primary purpose of satellites. But outside cities, they can offer a lot of utility to the transport, agricultural, remote sites that are around, not just for communication, but also for navigation and safety and security. But AI is a key enabler in the satellite industry already.
Absolutely. So we started to talk about AI, in the current form, and I think AI probably is one of the most overloaded term, right? AI is not one AI, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have been talking about AI since, I don't know, so 1955, I believe, when the
At
term was
least
signed.
at least 1955. Yes,
Yeah,
we've had several AI winters,
exactly.
and we need a longer AI summer.
Absolutely. But that AI, this AI, and tomorrow's AI, they're not the same AI, right? AI is a lot many things. It would be unfair to call all those AIs or paint all those in a same brush. So,
I mean, the internet has evolved a lot.
absolutely.
Mobile has been through 5 generations already. Why
Yeah,
should it just be one AI?
yeah. But I think here, that's what I feel, and would be great to get your view there as well. Is, let's say, for internet, more or less the fundamentals have remained same, right? So as we were discussing earlier, internet was read only, it became write as well, and then it moved from the serving of the verticals to a lot many other things. Mobile as well, the fundamentals remain same. We added, more capacities. We just kept adding numbers in front of the G's. Who knows what will happen next? And then in majority of the cases, it's almost linear, right? We were adding more maybe speed, more bits per second. We were adding, of course, there's a lot of. I mean, it will be unfair to say that it's just that, right? There's a lot of innovation that happened behind the scene. But for AI, the foundations were different. Earlier, we were predicting stuff, then we started to generate stuff.
Yeah.
Now we are talking about, hey, all these digital services are agentic, right? So fundamentally, it's not just the technology. Technology probably has remained not exactly same, but in the same path, right? We still use, for example, Leibniz chain rule in backpropagation. We're using Bayesian, linear algebra. But where do you see next, right? I'm sure the listeners would want to know because the speed is, I don't have a word for that. So, what next in AI?
Well, I think first of all, we need a bit of stability, not just hype. And agentic AI is with us and will continue to flourish, I'm sure. But I think we need to reassure the listeners that we think about risks and opportunities, and we want to make sure it's a stable path forward, not a chaotic way forward. I think there are some solutions that are more consumer based, which will follow, but business to business needs are a little different. I also think some of the governmental needs are a little different. So I think it's better to look at agentic AI broken down into different sectors and into different user groups. If I was to look in healthcare, for example, I think there is another revolution going on in healthcare called genomics.
Yeah,
And to me, some of the work on genomics can only progress with AI help because the amount of data is huge. The requirement for precision and minimizing risks is also huge. So to me, I would plot the route of genomics alongside AI. I'd also say in communication terms, we've talked about the hearing and seeing, but we haven't talked about the other senses of taste and smell. And some of the things that you see when looking at taste and smell is it's useful to be able to transfer taste and smell. But if the data sets are huge, you will need AI to help you with taste and smell. Why might you want to transfer a smell? Can you smell a recipe and transfer that and share that with somebody? Can you smell a disease or an illness? Dogs can certainly smell cancer if trained to do so. Can you transfer smell that may have some benefits? But AI will help the analysis of the data to make sure it's the precise sharing and expectation of the output. When it comes to taste, you might want to not just remember the smell of a favourite meal, but you might also want to be able to remember the taste somehow. And so we will see more modal translation of smell and taste in the years to come because there are some applications there. Will it replace hearing and seeing? I doubt it. But I think it will be in the mix of modal translation where AI will help in those areas as well.
Yeah, that's very interesting, isn't it? Because, that will have, again, coming back to the benefit to the society thing that
Yeah.
we kept talking about. So I think that's where some sort of non-invasive and proactive, management of health might happen because right now it's very reactive. I have some problem, okay, go through the scan, do blood test, but maybe AI can spot patterns on my face, the way am speaking, the way, as you said, tastes, etc. I don't know how to translate that. It's very difficult to visualize, but I'm sure that will come, and that will help to, diagnose things without going through those, let's say, more kind of rigor and invasive things, do blood tests and all, right?
Without getting too invasive, have you seen the app called Be My Eyes?
No.
So for blind people, an app called Be My Eyes is amazing.
Okay. Yes, I have seen that.
Yes.
Yes.
But
Yes,
it doesn't use full AI,
Yeah.
but it's using intelligence
Yeah,
to
yeah,
help
exactly.
somebody see what's in a shop
Yeah.
or what's in a centre
Yeah. It actually
when
speaks to you, isn't
because
it?
it speaks to you.
Yeah.
It's not text to speech;
Yeah.
it's video to
Yeah.
speech.
Yeah.
It's describing. So I've seen a blind man go into a shop and say, "I'd like a Mars bar,"
That's amazing. That's transformational, isn't it?
isn't it? But that's inclusive. That's
Yes,
inclusivity.
absolutely.
And there are other apps out there that are helping this sort of
Yeah.
disability and inclusion story
Yeah.
so much more. If you are less mobile than you would like to be, you need to know that there might be an escalator at the train station.
Yeah.
You might want to know whether you can get in all the train carriages. Again, this is information, but in some cases, Be My Eyes might give you even more information.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I was thinking probably, and again, I can't put a timeline in there because, as we were discussing, what next in AI, right? So these are, of course, transformational, right? This will improve the life of, let's say that visually impaired person that you said. That's transformational, right? They never had that. But what I think is what's next from a, let's say, big jump perspective. This is why I was saying predictive AI to generative AI to agentic AI. I think there is still many things that AI has got problems with. And then the problem is not with AI. The problem is with the approach of um, data-based learning because many of the things are not expressed in data, right? So how does the physical world work? How do we actually interact with the physical world? You talked about tastes, etc. There is no data for that, right? Because we never digitize that, or even in analog form, there isn't, right? You can describe it in a poetry, but how will this AI learn? I think that's where the world is talking about world models, but that's where it will come up to.
Can I just add a little bit more? I think the curation of data is a particular issue, but that also needs some cleansing because structured and unstructured data doesn't fit well together. Some of our data may still be paper-based, so there's a lot of work to do before full AI adoption can occur, particularly if the underlying data hasn't been curated properly or consistently digitized.
Yeah, and also, I mean, right now there's a lot of discussions happening on are we hitting the data wall?
Yeah.
Have we exhausted all the data? That needs to be analyzed first, but that probably is for a future episode. I believe.
But it's been great talking to you today. I think we think the future's rosy and there are plenty of opportunities.
Absolutely, great talking to you, Mike. So we talked about lots of, I think, transformational things, right? So it's still positive. Yes, there are concerns on AI. We need to be right because this is something that's completely new. But there are lots of good things that we can do. And I'm also very hopeful for the future. Like you, Mike.
As they say, it's good to talk.
It's good to talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us today. We will be sure to see more Tech Tuesdays podcasts coming up. Keep an eye out on the Tech Tuesdays website for more information on future talks.